Stats and standings for the end of January and February. Sorry for the abrupt ending there, but that's what happens when you're not an actual YouTuber on YouTube. It's gonna happen. Oh well. We're just doing this for fun. So get caught back up. We're just going through the individual teams right now. If you saw the first one, you already saw the standings for all the teams. You've seen the league leaders and goals and points. If you're in this one, you're just taking a look at a couple teams. Maybe I've missed your favorite team, and here you are. So honestly, not going to be a whole lot in this little section of video, but here we go. We saw Pavel Bure as the points leader and goal leader, sitting right at the top of that Rocket Richard race as well. It's the goal back of the trio that are all tied for 48 goals at the top of the league. Florida at the bottom of the Atlantic. Well, not quite the bottom. Tampa Bay's got the bottom. Second last in the Atlantic. Probably not going to find their way into the playoffs. And this goaltending is going to be a big part of that, especially Roberto Luongo in net there. Under 900. Van Beesbrook a bit better. Just about hanging on to 910. He's splitting the net with Luongo as well. He's probably taking over at this point. But probably a little too late for the Panthers, especially in that stacked Atlantic. The Golden Thrashers of Vegas and Atlanta, led by their two killers, Danny Heatley and Ilya Kovalchuk. What a surprise they've been for this whole season. And these two guys have been pretty much the reason for it, along with their goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury. 913 for him. That's actually come down. He was up there on the Hashtag stratosphere a little earlier in the season. Still the second best team in the league. Third best team, I think, now. Coming into this. And the Golden Thrashers absolutely killing it. Off the back of their top line, Heatley and Kovalchuk. They've got William Karlsson with them. But it's been the Thrasher show here between Heatley and Kovalchuk. Heatley tied for the lead for the Rocket Richard with 48 goals. We saw Fleury briefly back here. He's been getting pretty much every start. Johan Hesberg found his way into the net a couple times. But 3 shutouts for Fleury as well. So between the top line and the goaltending, the Vegas Magic works again, even when you're bringing the Thrashers. Over to LA, no surprise to see Gretzky leading here. 68 points in 65 games for him. Not quite as good as himself in Edmonton, but turns out when you got a bit better players hanging around you, Connor McDavid helps. Zygmunt Palffy just a little bit behind him. Anytime you can keep up with Gretzky, that's something to brag about. More goals than Gretzky is Zygmunt Palffy as well, 31 for him. The Kings kind of hanging around near the bottom of the Pacific. I don't think they're totally out of it yet, but doubt we'll see a Gretzky versus Gretzky playoff round between the Oilers and Kings in this one, but might be a little early to say. Still got about a month and change left to go. Goaltenders, we saw them earlier in the league stats, just kind of how they play it out. So evenly splitting the net. Rogie Vachon and Jonathan Quick. Pretty similar stats for both of them. More wins for Jonathan Quick. More starts as well. And a little bit better in the save percentage. 2 shutouts for him there too, so you don't want to discredit somebody's shutouts, but if you take those shutouts out, save percentage is not doing so great. But why would you take the guy's 2 best games out of him? So, you know. Minnesota, we just saw them. They're still in that battle for the final wildcard spot in the West. Starting out of the net for them. Devin Dubnik's been their guy. We saw Dwayne Rolls in the net. Got the win for them in overtime. In our last game we just watched against the Columbus Blue Jackets. But Dubnik rocking a 9-15 for them. They needed some help in the net for this one. Another one of those rosters that doesn't quite stack up to the rest. But they've got some good firepower up front with a couple guys. Marian Gaborik leads the way here. Not going to be up there in the 60s and 70 point range like those other guys, but he's been doing well on this team. Some secondary scoring coming. Their top goal scorer is going to be Andrew Brunette. Bit of a surprise there for him. Zach Parise, you expect him up in that realm. But the Wild putting together a solid team effort, and if they can find a way to sneak their way into the playoffs, I believe they're about 4 points back at the Winnipeg Jets right now with some games in hand for that second wildcard spot in the West. That'll be a great story for the Wild, as one of the newer expansion teams in the league behind the Golden Knights, who try to find their way into the playoffs, into this Legends League. Montreal Canadiens, You'd expect some big point scorers here. They've kind of gone more of the spread it through the line-out route, it looks like, but they're up near the top of the Atlantic. It's been working for them. Guy Lafleur leads with 60 points for them. Rocket Richard, it's named after him for a reason. He's got 36 goals, leads the Montreal Canadiens in goals. And you see their points leaders there. In the net for them, we got Jacques Plante and Carey Price. Plante's been taking the net there. A .915 for him, right near the top of the league. So the Habs maybe not getting the legendary scoring you would necessarily expect out of them. With a goaltender like Jacques Plante, that more than makes up for it. They've pretty much got their ticket punched to the playoffs. In that three-way tie for the top spot in the Atlantic with the Red Wings and the Bruins. 77 points apiece. Nashville Predators. They looked like they might have been a story at the start of the season. We saw them near the top of the league, but quickly, even then, we kind of saw it was mostly reliant on the goaltending of Pekka Rinne. They weren't getting any goal support. The goal support never came, and we'll go take a look at Rinne right now before I totally put my foot in my mouth. But yeah, a 9-10 for Rinne, very respectable. But he was up there above Hasek. I believe he was up in like the 930s, high 920s for sure, and that just wasn't going to stick around, especially on this team. It hasn't. And the Predators have sank near the bottom of the lead. Alex Radulov leads for them in points with 52. There's going to be a logjam at the front here in goals. Radulov and Legwand tied with 18. No 20 goal scorers yet through 64 games played for them. So tough to find the back of the net for the Predators. New Jersey Devils, the teams we expected to have a little bit of trouble scoring, but expected it to be made up for with their goaltender and their defense. Zach Parise leads for them. In points, we got Taylor Hall, gonna be second. Look at that, for Gionta. No assists for Gionta, like 7 assists for Gionta. Barely even cracks does he even crack the screen? Nope, doesn't even crack the screen in points. But he's their top goal scorer with 22. Taylor Hall behind them, and that's gonna be one of those ones if I do a second season. Don't expect to see Taylor Hall on the New Jersey Devils for obvious reasons. He's not there anymore. Firstly, secondly, probably shouldn't have been on the team to begin with, but I put him on there. Give them a little current team offensive firepower, and it's worked out for them in the sim. He's been up there near the top of the team for them, but don't expect to see him in Legends League round 2 if I do one of those. Talk about the defensemen for them. We'll take a look at them here. Usually not for a points reason, but just to take a look at this decor. Niedermeyer, Rafalski, and Stevens, the big headliners there. Danico, Green, and Albleen. Right around there. Not a whole lot of minuses in here, and some low minuses. Again, I talked about plus minus not being all that spectacular, but it's kind of what we got to work with in this game. So now we're going to take a look there, and Marty Werder is a starter for them. Not quite up there in that Hasek stratosphere that you maybe would expect him to be at, but solid 9-13 for him. More than enough to keep his team in it. Not quite in the playoff hunt right now, I don't believe, but a respectable record, certainly in that bubble area in the Metropolitan. And the Jersey Devils. I said the same thing about the Avalanche. With a goaltender like Marty Bergeur, you find your way into the playoffs, anything can happen. Staying in the Metro with the New York Islanders, Mike Bossy leads for them. You'd expect him to lead in goals, and he does. He's not quite up there in the Rocket Richard range with the guys around the 48-goal level, but just below them. Just below that tier is Mike Bossy. Billy Smith, the goaltender for them. Some great backup work out of Chico Resch here too. A 921 from him. Only 12 starts, but still, you'd expect Billy Smith to have the net. He's taken it, but some great efforts as the backup for their goaltender there too. So, some good work for the Islanders there. Henrik Lundqvist has been getting the starts over Mike Richter. I was hoping to see more of an even split between these two, but the sim has seemed to favor Lundqvist. He's got the better numbers too, so can't really blame it. Only one win for Richter. So these guys into the bottom of the Metro. We expected them to probably be the worst of the original 6 teams, but didn't expect them to be totally out of the playoffs like this, especially when they're separated from those other original Sixers in the Atlantic. Mark Messier leads them with only 47 points. We haven't seen a team with the points leader that low, I believe, since you go back to the Blue Jackets around there. Blue Jackets and Wild, so tough go for the Rangers here. Their top goal scorer is going to be Steve Vickers, only 17 goals. So scoring is a problem for the Rangers. Ottawa Senators have been right there in the hunt in the Atlantic. You would expect them to do pretty okay under normal circumstances. They're playing against those big guys that we keep talking about. They're right there. They're out of the playoffs right now, but they're just behind Buffalo and Toronto in that dog fight for the wild card spot. Buffalo, Carolina, Toronto, and Ottawa all right there fighting for those last two spots in the East. Daniel Alfredson, a big part in keeping, we knew he would be, the Ottawa Senators right there in the hunt. 74 points in 66 games for him. Another point per gamer just behind him. Danny Heatley, he's killing it over in Vegas, Atlanta. Doing pretty okay in Ottawa too. It looks like we're going to have a three-way tie. Yeah, a three-way tie for their top goal scorer. Alexei Yashin, Danny Heatley, and Daniel Alfredson. That's their part to two lines, I believe. They got Spezza. I had Spezza at the top, but I think I might have switched him out. The Spezza line wasn't... Yeah, you can see it in the plus-minuses here. The Spezza line wasn't doing so hot, so we broke that up. And we put Yashin between Heatley and Alfredson, and that has given them a big offensive boost. Put them right in there in the playoff hunt. As much as I personally hate to help Ottawa, just in the semblance of fairness here, it's worked out for them, and they might beat the Leafs now, so I'll cry about that later. In net, we expected that to be a little bit of a problem. Patrick Lalime not doing so great. We saw when we flipped the script on the save percentages near the bottom of the league. League leaders in save percentage. Craig Anderson hasn't played a whole lot. Has been pretty good. Maybe he should get a couple more starts. His stats overall's not as great as Lalime's, but only by a couple there. So we might see Anderson. That might be the next little tweak to Ottawa. That might find a way to push them into that playoff hunt even more than they already are. Might be the flip to Craig Anderson in net. Philadelphia Flyers come up next year. Two goaltenders rocking a 9-10s. Bernie Perron been the starter ahead of Ron Hextall. Mark Recchi leads here in points for them. You would probably expect somebody more like Lindros or Clark to be up there, but Recchi, I would argue, he's going to be a Hall of Famer if he's not already, I forget, but always been kind of one of those underrated stars. You know he's a star, but maybe not quite the level of some of those other guys. Of course, this is just one of these things, but that's how it's working out for Recchi. Lindros, way up there in goals, though. Lindros leads the team with 33. Pretty much exactly what you expect here. Mario Lemieux leads the Penguins. Sidney Crosby a bit farther down. So we saw it earlier with the Oilers. You had Gretzky and McDavid right here at the top. It's going to be Lemieux and Malkin here instead of the top here. So works out for them. Crosby's playing that center on the second line. But two lines really clicking. You got Lemieux, Francis, and Yager. Malkin, Crosby, and I think it's Mullen playing with them. So two big top lines for Pittsburgh. They're getting that done. Lemieux leads in goals, doubling up Malkin and Crosby. And that's a big reason why the Pittsburgh Penguins lead the Metro. Another big reason, Tom Barrasso right here. And the backup worker, Marc-Andre Fleury, as well. San Jose Sharks right there near the bottom of the league. I believe they might be the bottom of the league. Evgeny Nabokov certainly has the lead in losses as far as quantity goes. Not that awful of a save percentage for him, which just kind of condemns his team even more. Vesta Toskala has been putting up some weirdly good numbers at 922 there. We'll probably see the issues right here. Yeah, not a whole lot of points coming out of the San Jose camp. Joe Pavelski and Joe Thornton lead for them. Goals, Joe Pavelski and Jonathan Cheekchew. St. Louis, right up there near the top of the league. I'm going to see a couple big guys up here, points-wise, in that 50 to 60 range. Pavel Demitra leads them with 66. Not quite cracking the point per game right now, but pretty close enough, that's for sure. Pavel Demitra also leads in goals. Tarasenko just behind him, and Brett Hull, we saw him as a points leader in Dallas. Right up near the top here for St. Louis as well. And again, we're seeing him more as a playmaker guy. He's a sniper. He's Brett Hull, but All kinds of assists for Brett Hall in the sim for whatever reason. We saw Curtis Joseph, second in behind Dominic Hasek in that range there. A 9-18 for him. All kinds of games, too. We expect him to be the starter by a pretty wide margin. 60 games for him to only 8 for the backup Lute. 38 wins for him there as well. So Cujo helping carry his squad there. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the worst team in the East. Didn't quite expect them to be the worst team in the East. Expected them to pretty much beat the Panthers, and that's about it, really, coming into it. But an underwhelming performance for the Lightning. Nick Havy-Bulin staying right there at 900. Ben Bishop a little bit better. Not splitting the net as much as maybe I thought they would. But that'll work there. Points, doing pretty okay in points, at least for their top two. Then it kind of falls off after that. Stamkos and Kucherov lead the way. But the guys you would hope would be the suitable second line guys, your St. Louis and your Le Cavalier, not quite working out for them. Those alumni you're able to bring back for them in this all-time experiment. At least in this sim anyway, those guys didn't work out for them. Later in goals, Stamkos and Kucherov tied at the top. Now we're next to my team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's a reason they're hanging around the bubble, and it's points and it's goals. They aren't getting them. Made fun of the Rangers for being an original 16 without 50 points. I got to do the same for the Leafs. Teeter Kennedy trying to crack that 50 mark. He leads the team with 49. Thomas Carberlet has been my own personal project deemed to drive me insane in this sim. 23 goals, leads the Leafs with goals. If you watch Thomas Carberlet, I loved him as a player. I really did, but he never shot the puck. And this Thomas Carberlet's got no problem shooting the puck. He's got 23 goals, 209 shots. That'll lead the team by a pretty hefty margin as well. That's the Toronto Maple Leafs there. I've played around with the lines of a lot of teams. None more so than the Leafs for my own personal bias reasons as well. But just no combination I can find can get these guys to score, but they're hanging out right there around the bubble, and not ashamed to say I'm pulling for them, but you definitely can't accuse me of cheating, at least not right now. If they storm up and win the cup, well, then something probably happened, but you know. Leader in goals for them was Carberlet. Forwards, it's Phil Kessel. And in net, another just weird scenario for them. Johnny Bauer, not good, under 900. Turk Broda, only 25 games played. I made the switch there. I think he's been getting the majority of the starts now. He's doing a 935. If I can just get Broda to stay in the net, what I might do for the last month, and it's partially because of the Leafs. Probably a large part because of the Leafs. Let's be honest with myself. But I might turn off the auto-rotate goalies for the last month just to give every team their best chance. I'll put their best goalie in and give them their best chance to succeed again. Because I will make some line movements off screen once I do this again. And get everybody as optimized as I can be. If I'm going to do it for the Leafs, I got to do it for everybody, right? So moving on to Vancouver, we saw Roberto Luongo struggle in Florida. He's struggling in Vancouver, too. An 886 for him. His backup, Kirk McLean, not much better. Vancouver having a hard time keeping the puck out of their net. They're scoring, though. They're scoring in bunches. Pavel Bure is at the top of the Rocket Richard for Florida. He's hanging out right around Art Ross territory for Vancouver. 75 big points for him. Henrik Sedin right there. Just about that point per game category, too. Daniel a little bit behind him. Bure leads the goals. McGillney just a little bit behind there. Goaltending, the issue for Vancouver, at least in this sim. Alex Ovechkin, I got it listed in goals here. Alex Ovechkin, not surprisingly, leading in goals. Looks like he's going to lead. Nope, 2 points behind Nick Backstrom in points. Backstrom feeds Ovechkin. Who would have guessed it? They got Peter Bondra on that line, too. He's been doing a lot of scoring. That's a big bunch of goals for that top line in Washington. They're second in behind Pittsburgh for the Metro. And that top line certainly seems to be a big part of that. In net for them, Olaf Kolzig and Braden Holtby. Holtby's been getting most of the starts. He's at a 9.05. Kolzig in behind him with a 9.10. Maybe see him play a bit more there, but I think especially if I'm going to turn off that auto rotate, we're going to stick with Holtby for them. And the Winnipeg Jets, the final team we're going to take a look at here. They are right on the bubble. They hold the final wildcard spot in the West. They had a couple points on Minnesota, but they've also played a couple more games. So it'll be a big final month for them. Try to stay into the playoffs. Connor Hellebuck's been their backstop for most of this season. 58 games for him. A 9.06. Very respectable 9.06 for him. We'll take a look at the points here as well. Timo Solani, the only point per game player for them, leads them. 69 points in 67 games. Great season so far for Solani over here in Winnipeg. He's been having a pretty okay season in Anaheim as well, playing on that top line with Rocket Richard contender Paul Correa. But here in Winnipeg, leads the team. Team leading goals, gotta go to current player Patrick Laine. And that's everybody. If you watched both, super thank you. If you've come this far, it's been fun. So I will go make a couple changes off screen. I've just decided right now I am going to turn off the auto rotate for the final month, just to give every team the best chance they have to make the playoffs. It's a last month dash. We've got no injuries on. Fatigue's turned down pretty good. Second half of back-to-backs do affect anybody, but they affect them anyway, whether the starters are in there or not. So we're going to turn off the auto rotates, get everybody's best goalie in, make sure their best goalie is in if there's some that need to be changed. I'm going to go through the lines a little bit. I like to keep them as close to the same as I can, because I did have lines put together for a reason. So like your production line in Detroit, your Triple Crown line in LA, your French Connection line in Buffalo. I'm not breaking those up, even if they're not doing great. But a couple other lines I can make tweaks with if they need to be. I did it in Ottawa with the Spezza, Heatley, Alfredson line. That was a line in real life that did really well, but you've also had Yashin who played with Alfredson, so that was kind of my excuse to allow that to happen. And it worked out well for them. They're hanging out right there in the bubble spot. They were kind of near the bottom of the division before that, so I think my tweaks are working for pretty much everybody. But yeah, that's going to be that. I'll make those adjustments. We'll do our final month. We got a couple more games I want to show for sure. Come down a couple more rivalry games anyway. I'll toss this in now where probably most people won't even see it. I'll say it when I do the Boston game. I had recorded a Boston and Montreal game. It was a great game. It went to overtime. Great finish. And then a couple presses of some buttons later, and it's gone. So that'll be unfortunate. We will get Montreal on the schedule, and we will get Boston on the schedule. Unfortunately, there's no games left with them two playing each other, so we won't get that. But we'll get a couple rivalry games in there for them. For Montreal, the obvious second rivalry will be Toronto, and yeah, it's an excuse to get the Leafs back on again. But I'll do that. And Boston, I haven't quite picked their opponent yet. I've got two options for them. It'll come right down to the last couple weeks of the season, depending on what the standings look like. Right now, as it stands, they are tied with Detroit and Montreal at the top of the Atlantic, so Detroit will likely be the rivalry. The other option was Ottawa, which when I first had it, Ottawa was a bit higher up, and we're starting to threaten that top three. But if it sticks the way it is right now, it'll be Boston, Detroit, and Toronto, Montreal to kind of replace that Montreal-Boston game that goes. We'll also see, in a couple of our last games, the Tampa Bay Lightning we haven't seen yet, and we haven't seen the New York Rangers. We'll have them go head-to-head. And we'll also see the Battle of Alberta, Calgary and Edmonton. And another game I'd like to see is a rematch of the 2003 Stanley Cup Final, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks and the New Jersey Devils. So those will be last games for sure, confirmed. And then as we get to the final weeks of the season, if there's any big games with big playoff implications at the end, we'll probably do those too. And then we'll do another video like this, get everything wrapped up, get the regular season awards pretty much squared away as far as the statistical ones, head into the playoffs, and crown an all-time Stanley Cup champion.